Hello, you guys. My name is Brittany, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, I am a nurse, and my family and I, we are currently going to be moving to the Boise area, and we are so excited. So, in this video today, we are mainly going to be talking about interviews and interview prep and interview questions that you're going to want to ask at your next job. So please join me in this video. I am right now just prepping for the week ahead. It is currently Sunday, and I am just doing some breakfast prep. I work both Monday and Tuesday. If you guys don't know, I am a pediatric outpatient nurse, and I've been doing that for just about a year now, and I love it so much. I only work PRN, but I typically work 1 to 2 shifts a week. I used to work full-time, but ever since we decided to move from North Dakota to Idaho, it took a lot of commitment, and we've had to do some traveling, and working full-time was just not going to work. I was going to have to be asking for way too many days off, and I just wanted some flexibility in the last few months of us being here, especially with it being summertime. And so I've been really fortunate that I was able to go down to PRN and still be able to work 1 to 2 shifts pretty consistently a week. So let's talk about what I am making. So when I work a nursing shift, I really like to have some breakfast prepped for myself. As you just saw me make, I made some chia seed pudding. I add a little bit of maple syrup into it, and then the next morning I'll just add some granola. And then right before that, I was also making my overnight protein oats. Super easy. You can really just put whatever you want in there. I do the oats. Sometimes I'll do maple syrup. Sometimes I do honey. I have a chocolate protein powder that I really like. And then sometimes I'll even add some salt, add some peanut butter, whatever I want. Chocolate chips is also another really good thing. Kind of can put whatever you want in it. And then just packing my lunch. I've been in love with these almonds. They're like chocolate covered, caramel covered, Blue Diamond almonds, I think. I also have a Slate protein drink. And going to just bring some cucumbers to work. Don't judge me and how I'm cutting this cucumber. Call me Kendall Jenner. I literally don't know what I'm doing. It's fine. Didn't want to dirty up a cutting board. So yeah, I'm going to bring all of that for my lunch. It was definitely just a little princess lunch. Nothing crazy, but it should do the trick. Maria, do you want to go outside? Do you want to go outside? Hello, you guys. So today we are going to talk about interviews. I myself am at a place in my life. I am 30. I have gone through quite a few interviews, different type of interviews for different types of jobs. I've gone through quite a few, I would say, but it is still something that is just so daunting, and no one likes to even think about having an interview. I am the type of person, I will have an interview in, let's just say, 1 to 2 weeks, and I quite literally cannot feel comfortable or happy or do my day-to-day until that interview is over with. Literally, my interview will be in 2 weeks, and it is all I can think about until that interview is done and over with. No matter whether it went good or bad, it's just all I can think about, and once it is done, I don't even care what the end result was. I just want it to be over with. So that is something we're just going to talk about today. I am no guru at this. It is something that I am still working on, and I think the older you get, your confidence, just rightfully so, does go up, and so you do get a little bit more comfortable. But I think at the end of the day, interviews are always going to be something that are just so daunting, and so that's just something that I am going through right now. It is the part of my life that is unfortunately my reality. We are moving from North Dakota to Idaho, and so we are officially going to be moving probably in the next like 2.5 months. So it might still be a little bit too early for me to be applying to jobs, but it's something that I've been doing. Even if they are jobs that I haven't necessarily been super excited about, it's just been really nice to get to know some of the main facilities that are in the Idaho area. So St. Luke's is one of them. St. Alphonsus is another major one that is in the Boise area. And so we have been applying, which has been really fun, but it's also scary at the same time because I am not from the area. I do have family and a couple friends that are currently living in the area, and so they can kind of give me some tidbits and key pointers for some of these facilities. But it's something that is still just really intimidating when you are moving and applying to jobs that you have no idea. The area that I'm currently living in, I've been living here for pretty much my whole life. So it was very easy for me when I was starting out in my nursing career, where to apply and maybe where not to apply, or jobs that I would be interested in places that I wouldn't really necessarily see myself fitting to work at. So this has been interesting. And I think a big thing to remember when you are interviewing, first of all, I try not to call it that. I try not to call it an interview because that just automatically sounds so terrifying. I like to look at it as just a meet and greet. I love Maya. She's eating the strawberries. I like to look at interviews like a meet and greet. And I don't have your ball. I don't have anything. Oh, you want to say hi? Okay. I think she thinks this is like a toy. It's not a toy. She thinks I'm going to throw this and play fetch with her. Maya, go find your ball. I don't know where your ball is. Go find your ball. This isn't a toy. This isn't a toy. Hi, I'm back. I don't know where I left off. Okay, so I like to think of these interviews more like meet and greets. And the reason, it sounds less scary, but also not only are they trying to figure out who you are and what you're about and what your intentions are, but you also need to be figuring out the same. And I think that mindset shift for me has dramatically changed how I view interviews or meet and greets, because I have a lot to offer. Whether you're a new grad nurse or you're a seasoned nurse, but you are changing specialties, or you've been a nurse for, of course, like 20 plus years, we all have so much to offer in different ways. And I think once you gain that confidence and knowledge and change your perspective into thinking of it like that, like they also owe me something. I also need to get to know them. I think that's a huge game changer. A lot of people like to view interviews simply as like, I'm not giving them anything, or like, I'll tell them about myself and be nice, but if I'm excited about an opportunity, I'm not going to show it. And I think that would make sense for some people. For me personally, when I'm excited about something, I can't hide it. Like, I am very expressive. And so that's not the way I go about it. I definitely, if I am truthfully like excited about a job opportunity or working for a certain facility, I'm going to tell them. And I think that's okay. I think that's important for them to see how excited you are, but also just knowing your value and what you do bring to the table as a nurse or whatever job that you are doing. Another little mind shift that I like to think about is, I don't need this job. And do I need this job? Yes, I do need a job, but I might not necessarily need this job. And so that is another thing. I feel like we just add so much pressure onto ourselves when we do interview, because it's like, this is the only job that I found that I really was interested in and I really, really want it. And that might be the case. But when you have that in the back of your head, you are going to be so nervous for your interview. And honestly, like, it's fine. If you are nervous for interviews, we're all going to be nervous for our interviews, but it can really impede your thought process and maybe your communication too as you are doing the interview. And so a lot of times I like to tell myself, do I want this job? Yeah, but I'm sure there's going to be more opportunities popping up. I'm at the point in my life right now, like I said, I have about 2 months to find something. And so I'm still looking at it like I still have quite a bit of time. If I don't find something in the next few weeks, it's okay, because I'm still going to have at least over a month to find something. If you are going from job A to job B, I typically recommend, if possible, to stay in that job A until you find that job B, so you're not in that situation of like, I do actually need a job, unless you just want to do something
kind of like as a buffer until you do find something. But then it just takes the pressure off. Like, I don't really need this job. More than likely, that facility, that company needs you way more than you need them. I, in my last job, was actually also in a position where I would be in on the interview process myself. And I think this was huge for me. This gave me a totally different insight as to what it's like to be just also interviewing people. Like, it's just totally different. And so I think when you are getting interviewed, you feel like you're the only one that's nervous. You feel like all eyes are on you. And what if I sound dumb? What if I look dumb? What if I like can't talk? All the things. But actually being an interviewer, right? Yeah, being an interviewer, you are also just as nervous because you also want things to go well. And you also want to sound smart. You also want to sound professional, if not maybe more than the person that's getting interviewed, because it's like, I want them to like us. I want them to work for us, especially if you see a lot of potential in them and you feel like they would be a really good fit for or with your team, for your team. You just want to also sound really likable and trustworthy, and you want to show them that this is a great place to work. And so I think that's a great thing to remember when you are the person that is getting... Hi. Oh no, I felt a raindrop. I think that's a great thing to remember when you are getting interviewed yourself, is that they are also probably nervous and they also want this to work out. If they don't have that mindset or they're not thinking like that, then it's probably not the place you want to work at. If they have kind of like an arrogant mindset or like, okay, let's just get this interview over with, like, it's probably not the place you want to be at anyways. And lastly, the other thing that I want to talk on when you are in the interview and all the feelings you are experiencing and the nerves. Like I said, the people interviewing you are probably nervous. And also, I am not fully paying attention to your curated answers. We don't want that. I am more so looking at, is she smiling? Is he smiling? Are we having like a good flow? And even if it's not, it's fine. Like, interviews can be awkward, but I'm really just looking at trying to get your vibe. And maybe not everyone views it that way, but like, you can give the most curated answer. Like, to me, that doesn't mean anything. But if they are giving off good vibes, I feel like I am one that can read people really well. And so this is me talking about like when you're getting interviewed or when you're interviewing, like, you want there to be good vibes all the way around. If you are just feeling like we are not on the same page, like, you might not be working with that person, so maybe it won't matter like when you're on the job field. But in my case, I would be working with them when I was interviewing them. And so it is something that you just want good vibes. And I don't care about your answers. I just want to see that you are somewhat a decent human. You seem really nice. You seem really friendly. You seem cool. And I think this could work. That matters way more than the perfected answers, in my opinion. So the pressure right now for me to find a job right in this very moment is not very high. A lot of places, they probably aren't going to want someone that's only going to be out there in the next 2.5 months. I don't blame them. But I have been able to interview with a few places, which has been really exciting. And it's given me just a good idea as to the facility that I potentially want to work with. And also, where I live right now is not a city. It is very much so a town. There's no suburbs. There's nothing. It's just a town. And where we are moving to, we're a suburb around other suburbs in the Boise area, around Boise, if that makes sense. So we are in the metro area. And so I have to decide, what suburbs do I want to work in? Do I want to do a lot of traveling? How many days a week do I want to work? What specialty? Do I want to stick in the same specialty as peds? Do I want to try a different type of nursing job? Am I doing inpatient, outpatient? Like, there's so many questions. And that is where I found myself so confused. I'm like, if I could pick, yeah, I would just want to do peds. I would want to stick with what I'm doing because it would be the most comfortable. But I didn't really take account into the different suburbs and the driving. When you look on a map, the Boise area, it looks so far apart. In reality, it's not that bad. Where we're going to be living, we're about like 15 to 25 minutes from a lot of the suburbs, which is really nice. But that is something that you do have to take into account. Do I want to work somewhere where maybe it's a specialty that I want, it's in the clinic that I want, but I have to drive 35 minutes to whatever suburb or to Boise to get there? And that was something I didn't think about. I didn't really take that into account. So me doing these interviews, you know, and them telling me like, it's going to be 3 days a week, but on Wednesdays, you're going to have to go travel to either A, B, C, D. I don't think I want to do that. And so these interviews are giving me that solidarity as to what do I want in my job. I interviewed for a home health position, which, if I'm being honest, I didn't know that the phone call was going to be really an interview. I kind of thought it was going to be just me being able to ask my questions and get answered. Well, in return, they were also asking about me, and rightfully so, makes sense. But it definitely ended up being more of an interview and a job offer. But I didn't know, like, home health, what it would all consist of. I don't have experience in ICU or in the NICU. Everything that I've done has been pretty much healthy patients. It just gave me a clear perspective and clear answer as to if that is something that I would want to do. Interviews are very educational for yourself, and they give you a lot of insight as to, excuse me, they give you a lot of answers as to maybe what you are looking for in a job and what you think that you just want to do in your next career. So let's talk about the first phase of interviewing. So I can't speak on all different careers because I've only ever been a waitress, I've been a CNA, I worked at a nutrition place, and a nurse. Is that all I've ever done for like jobs? Oh, I was also a social media assistant and manager. Typically, I would say for most healthcare jobs, you are going to talk to a recruiter first, and then you are going to talk to the hiring team, whether that's your hiring manager or fellow nurses that you would be working with. One thing that you, of course, want to do is prepare yourself for both the recruiter interview and the interview with the manager and the fellow nurses or whoever is going to be in that second interview. There are going to be questions that you're going to want to ask the recruiter, and there's going to be questions that that are going to be better asked to the manager or to the nurses. And so that is just something that you have to figure out, like, okay, in my current job position, like, this is how the flow is. I need to make sure I get a clear understanding as to this job, how that flow is going to be. Is that a better question to ask the recruiter, or is that a better question to ask the manager? So for example, what does the day in a life of this nurse, what does that look like? Probably not a question that you're going to ask the recruiter. More likely that's going to be a question that you are asking that hiring manager, or if there is a floor nurse that is also in on that interview. And so that is just something that you have to decipher and know. It's not going to be bad if you ask the recruiter a question that maybe wasn't appropriate for the recruiter. Just make sure that you have that written down for your next interview if you don't get clarification or an answer to your question. And so you can ask in that second interview. So right now, I'm just going to go through some of the questions that I think are great to ask in an interview. It's really going to depend if you are looking at more inpatient jobs, outpatient jobs, if you're looking at maybe a contract role, I don't know. I feel like questions definitely need to be specific as to the job that you're applying for. I also think it's a great idea if you don't know much about the facility or even the position that you are getting hired for to look up questions to ask before you are in that interview. Because I say this, a while back, I was going to try to be a remote nurse and do prior authorizations, and I didn't know a lot about that. I don't do prior authorizations. We have our own prior auth team at the facility that I currently work at, and so I was like, I don't even know what that is. I was just really interested in a remote role and doing a different type of nursing job, and so I didn't though know, like, what questions do I even ask? And so instead of just being like, oh, whatever, and like doing the interview, I looked up what that job would be like. I had kind of a general idea, which is why I applied for it, of course, but looked at other YouTube videos actually on girls that do prior authorization or remote nursing in general, and just kind of decided what questions do I need to ask and what do I need to have figured out before I commit to this job. Questions that I think are really good to ask. What is the retention rate at this clinic or at this department or at this unit, on this unit? So important. Deciding too, is this role going to be replacing a nurse, or is this role like a new role that they're making? retention is huge. Retention is so huge. And now it is starting to rain. It is starting to rain. If they are constantly having nurses come and go, that is a huge indicator to you as to maybe what the environment is like, what that workload is like. Could be multiple reasons why it's in and out, in and out. But that is definitely something you want to ask. I also like to ask, is this a new role or is this going to be replacing someone? And the reason I say that is because if it is a new role, who then is going to be educating you? Who is going to be orientating you? Because if it's a brand new role, then who's going to be there for me? You know what I mean? I also like to ask, how many other nurses am I going to be working with? If I am in a department where I am the only nurse for that provider and that's the only provider in that department, that's a little scary to me. I love to work with other nurses because we all always have questions. And so like, even if I have a manager that I can like send a message to when I have a question, yes. But your first year, whether you're a seasoned nurse or not, or whether you've done that specialty or not, you're going to have so many questions. And so I personally, I'm independent, yes, but I like to have at least someone else that I'm working with. And so I think that's really important. Are there other MAs? Are there LPNs? Are there CNAs, PCTs, whatever they call them? How many providers are there? You know, triage versus all the inbound calls and Epic and versus like actually taking care of the patients and phone calls and the messages. That is all super important to know, like your role as a nurse. What are you mainly going to be doing? Hello. I had to move because it started to rain. I think I was talking about just understanding what your role is going to be as the nurse. Of course, when you apply for a job, it'll always be like the nurse is in charge of using the nursing process and doing this and doing that, but really getting a good understanding as to what am I going to be doing? I think another important thing to talk about is, what does the orientation process look like? At my current job, they were down bad, maybe is the right word, when they were hiring. And so the onboarding process, you know, you have the first week of learns, and those are great, but they do kind of annoy me because a lot of the times they're not even department specific. So you spend a week doing all of these learns that are required, and I totally get it. Like all different facilities are going to have those, but a lot of them don't even pertain to the department or outpatient care, as I'm sure there's a lot of outpatient things or ambulatory care that the inpatient people are like, why are we learning about this? We're not doing this. And as frustrating as that is, it just is what it is. But then when I'm actually on the floor and orientating, what does that look like? Is it 2 weeks long? Is it 4 weeks long? Am I going to have just 1 or 2 set preceptors? Those are really important questions to ask, because I think whether you are a new nurse or a seasoned nurse, you need that go-to person. You need that preceptor. You need that education to be set in stone. You need that orientation to be set in stone. I didn't really have that at my last job, the job that I'm currently at. And although like it was okay, I just feel like it made me so much more stressed. It made me really anxious. It made me feel all over the place. I am an organized person, so I took notes after notes after notes. But I would prefer to be at a job that has a set orientation, a set preceptor, a set thing that we are going by each week or each day, each shift that we're working together. So I think that's just a great idea. At least it might not be a deal breaker, but especially if it is a brand new specialty that you've never done before, you're going to need the training. You're going to need the education. You're going to need that nurse that is supporting you. And so just to get a heads up as to what you're going to be getting into that first 1 to 2 months. Okay, so a taboo thing that people might not want to talk about, but we need to be talking about. What is the pay? You need to be asking that. I honestly think it's crazy if the recruiter doesn't even tell you right away. I think that's something that should be posted. I used to think it's crazy when they don't post it on their website. And I used to think like, oh, they're not posting it because it's not enough money, and so they don't want to show people how little money that they would be making. But I've actually learned it can also be the opposite. It can actually be a pretty high paying job, but they don't want to put it on there because they don't want like all these applicants just to be applying because of how much money they would be making. And so I kind of like that. I don't think it's a bad thing when jobs don't post right away how much they're going to be making, because I understand if that is the reason, like because it's such a high paying job, they don't want just a bunch of people applying for the wrong reasons. But in that first interview with the recruiter or whoever it's with, you need to know how much money you're going to be making, because it's going to be a waste of your time. If it is completely lowballing you. I would hope that the recruiter tells you right away, but sometimes they don't. And so that is something that you do need to ask. And if they're weird about it, if they're not transparent, bye-bye. You need to get out of that, because that is not what you need to hear. You need to know how much you are going to be paid. Another thing that is really good to think about, or just helpful to keep in the back of your head when you're applying for jobs, is if you see a job that's posted and they say 2 days a week, okay, and you're like, okay, like I want to work part-time, but I would rather work 3 days a week, don't just not apply for the job. Definitely still apply. Talk to them and be like, so I see that the job posting is for 2 days a week. Do we think that's something that could maybe be bumped up to 3 days, or in the future, do we think it's something that could increase to 3 days? It doesn't hurt to ask, because a lot of times they just have to put something, right? And if they want you to work with them, they're going to be flexible, and maybe they won't, and that's okay. And you'll just have to decide if that's something that you're willing to be okay with, or if it's something that, you don't want. You want 3 days a week, or you want 4 days a week, but don't make that turn you off. I feel like that was always my biggest thing when I'm applying. It's like, okay, so it says travel, or okay, it says 2 days a week. I really want 3 or 4 days a week, or it says weekends. But get better understanding. Sometimes too, those job postings aren't even accurate. Like that's one thing that I've noticed too, is if of course the job is not a job that you want to apply, it's not worth your time. But if it's something that you're interested in, but there's a couple of things that you're like, it doesn't hurt. Anyway, so just make sure to get clarification and to ask, because it doesn't hurt. And now is going to be the time when you are in that job and committed. It's going to be a lot harder to ask for some of that movement or some of that flexibility than it is when you're in the interview process. One last thing that I think is important to talk about is area for growth in this job. So nursing, that could look like floor nurse to charge nurse to lead nurse. Whether it's you are a charge nurse and then you go up to a management position, if that is something that you would desire, I don't know. But it's always nice to just talk about that. I mean, I'm the type of person, I don't really know if I'm ever going to do anything just above like just being a clinic nurse, because I really like that right now. But it's always good to know. It's always good to talk about. And I think it also always shows them that you're just looking to improve, whether you are or not. It's just, I think people that are hiring like to hear that question. And when I'm saying this now, I just thought of something. Like a few interviews ago, they asked me what my short-term and my long-term goals are. Think about that. Think about that question, because that is something that when I get asked, and I'm like, this is always asked in all of my interviews, and I never know what to answer. I never know what to say. And I think it's okay if you're like, oh, I haven't really thought about it. Like, it's fine. You're being honest. And again, I think it's one of those things, they're not necessarily looking for a perfect answer, but it does show them that you are an individual who is looking to grow and you want to grow, whether that is just as a person or as a nurse or whatever career you're into. It just shows them a lot about yourself. And so I'm saying that because I think that is a question that they always ask at all interviews, and I literally never know what to say because it's one I don't think about. I am so fixated on like, okay, this is what I do as a peds nurse. I like this as a peds nurse. I really love peds, and this is why I'm a good peds nurse. This is why I'm a good nurse, blah, blah, blah. But no, just think about the simple things. Like, what are your goals? Okay? What are your goals? Think about it. If you guys can think about anything else that is so helpful for preparing for an interview, questions to ask when you're in an interview, or just ways to boost your confidence, please comment down below, because I'm, of course, still in the interview process. And so I would love to know your thoughts on this. I think it's just helpful for everyone. This is something that all of us have to do, unfortunately. And sometimes it's one of those things where it's like you haven't had an interview for 5 years because you've been at your job for 5 years. And so it doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter how seasoned of a nurse or whatever career you're into. It does not matter. It still is scary. And so please please give advice to anyone who is in this similar season of life.
So, like I said, it is a Sunday, and so for my Sunday night routine, Owen is so cute. For my Sunday night routine, I'm going to take an everything shower, which is what I did. I try to do a little bit more of a skincare routine on my Sunday nights, whether I work the next day or not, just like to get my skin nice and prepped. Sometimes I'll put on this Medicube mask, which I really enjoy. I didn't do that tonight, but that's something that I typically like to do. So yeah, I took a shower, washing my face, and I am putting on, it's a new favorite of mine. It's a new retinol cream. I think I got it from Ulta. The one I was using before was the CeraVe cream. That one is more like an on-the-spot one. I'll have to check on the brand name of that one, but I really like it. And then, of course, using Hailey Bieber's brand Rhode, the peptide cream, which I really enjoy. And looking for what I should do next because I can't do two things at once. I like to do a little bit of lymphatic drainage. I think this jade, no, it's not a jade roller. The jade stone that I'm using, it is from the brand Wilding. I spent like $60 on it. Tell me why I did that. I got this like 3 years ago and I do use it. I don't use it every night. I kind of go on my streaks and it works well, but why did I spend that much money on it is beyond me. I have no idea, but it feels good, feels nice. I do feel like it gives me a snatched jawline, which I appreciate, but you probably don't need to spend that much. Anyways, so that is pretty much the end of my night. Definitely just going to unwind and relax until I have to go to work in the morning. It's always so hard for me when I have multiple days off because I am PRN and then trying to get myself back in the swing of things. And then it's like you do get yourself in the swing of things and then you're done because you did your 2 shifts and you're done for the week. And so it's always a mental game, but I feel like whether you work full-time or part-time or PRN, always going back for that first shift is just kind of hard. Regardless, it's never going to be fully easy. So I am just super appreciative for the schedule that I can do. And oh, there's Mark, of course, always trying to make a presence in the videos. But I hope you guys have a wonderful day, whether it's the morning that you're watching this or at night. I hope you enjoyed. Please leave a comment below on what season of life you're in your nursing journey. Have you been at your job for 5 years? Have you just graduated from nursing school? Are you just entering nursing school? Please tell me what you're doing. I would love to hear. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Like and subscribe would be so appreciated. And yeah, I hope you guys take care and like this video. Bye.